Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council presents EPIC Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host, Ken Cherry.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ken Cherry, your host tonight. Thank you for joining us for the premiere of EPIC Voyages. Our guest tonight is Tom T. Moore. Tom is an entertainment industry CEO, author, and speaker. His books, The Gentle Way, a self-help guide for those who believe in angels, and The Gentle Way 2, The Story Continues, give many more suggestions for requesting benevolent outcomes. Please visit his website at www.thegentleWaybook.com. And Tom, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Ken.
Well, the pleasure is ours. And I know that you've been very busy lately with conferences last weekend and then again just yesterday for the EPIC meeting. You were met with great enthusiasm. And as a matter of fact, by the time I got home, my email box was filled with more questions for you. That box is ken@epicvoyagers.com. And we could probably make the entire program just based on those questions. But well, just to let our listeners know, we'll get to some of those later on. So I guess now what we really ought to do is just find out how you got involved in or began The Gentle Way.
Sure. It all began about 14 years ago when I discovered I could start requesting benevolent outcomes in every part of my life. Now, at first, when I was testing this out, I started with a very mundane request like a parking spot in front of a busy restaurant or in front of the postal connection place that I went to for my mail. That was always the parking spots were hard to find. And, of course, each time I would arrive, someone would be pulling out of the parking space and I would get it. So it was building up trust on this immediate feedback type request. And so I started integrating it to all my personal life and all my business life in things that I knew would take longer to manifest, but were things that I would request benevolent outcomes for.
Tell me, when you ask for spiritual help, I guess as a description, for better outcomes, isn't that like cheating? I mean, isn't a selfish way to look at things, or for selfish means?
Absolutely not. Your guardian angels have been instructed by our souls, according to what I've been told, to not interfere with our lives unless we ask for assistance. Once we ask for assistance, as long as we are asking for a benevolent outcome, which means it has to be benevolent for everybody involved in the request, then they will joyfully assist you in the challenges that we all face in life. As my guardian angel Theo describes it, instead of going down the road and hitting a brick wall that you have to climb over, it's like hitting a speed bump. So it just makes life easier, and they're happy to assist us in that way because our lives are so difficult on Earth.
Well, I'm going to play, I hate to say devil's advocate, but an advocate here for a moment. How do you know that you're speaking to angels, and specifically your guardian angel? I mean,
Sure.
Someone might say,
when you
well, he's talking to himself.
Yes, I'm sorry. First of all, when you start requesting benevolent outcomes, that you get immediate feedback that benevolent things are happening in your life. So that's the first thing that you do is in requesting benevolent outcomes. You say, I request the most benevolent outcome for my drive to work today. Thank you. You always thank your guardian angel. And that starts making you more aware. It starts raising your vibrational rate, and it means that you're starting to co-create with spirit. So as you go along, and then you just know that when these fantastic things start happening, and they happen very magically to you, that you just know there's this benevolent spirit behind it. And then as you go along and you start communicating with spirit, as I do now, then there are other ways to tell that you're definitely getting a message from the right place.
Right. Well, how do you receive these messages?
Okay.
From your guardian angel, from Theo.
Sure. Okay. When I started communicating with spirit, basically it works where I go into a light meditative state. You have to understand the different levels of our awareness is the beta, which is our conscious state, the alpha state, which is a light meditative or light hypnosis state, the theta level, which is a deep hypnosis or deep meditative state, and then you have the delta state, which is sleep. And so I stay in the alpha state, which allows me to type the questions on a computer that I've got already written down on a pad of paper, and then listen to what Theo calls thought packets. And he sends me these thought packets that I filter according to my belief system, knowledge, experience, and so on, and it goes from right brain to the left brain. And that's how it works. It's for someone that already meditates, they'll understand when I say you have to keep in a little higher level. You can't go into that deep meditative state because you won't be able to ask the questions and receive the answers.
Well, you mentioned your state of mind and vibrational rates and higher levels of consciousness. Can you give us some idea what you mean by those, other than just the alpha beta state in the sense that you're meditating?
Sure.
What are you referring to when you're talking about raising our vibrational rate?
Well, everybody vibrates at some rate, okay? And some people vibrate at a higher level than other people. And for people that vibrate at a pretty good higher level, they're sort of called light workers. I mean, that's sort of been the term that's been used by people that have raised their vibrational rate and are working for the good of humanity. And so when you start requesting benevolent outcomes, you're raising that vibrational level. You start being able to see things from almost like sitting in the stands and watching things come together, and you say, wow, that's fantastic how all this came together, that perhaps you requested a benevolent outcome for the perfect job for you. And then you think, oh, I'm never going to be able to get this job because there's this other person in the job right now. And then suddenly they get offered a promotion or another job, and that job becomes open, and you're able to move into it. And you move into it because your interview was just absolutely perfect because you requested a benevolent outcome for the interview. And it just goes on. There's so many things that go into you getting that perfect job. And the same thing with asking, when you start looking for a new home, you can request a benevolent outcome for the perfect home for you. And it'll happen. And then you can even request a benevolent outcome for the perfect mate for you. Now, when you start asking for these larger or more complicated benevolent outcomes, you have to be patient. And Theo says humans are very impatient. So I got emails from somebody that says, "Oh, I requested benevolent outcome for the perfect mate for me, and it's been a month and nothing's happened. This doesn't work." So you have to give it time. This takes maybe months or a year. You have to be patient. So you request these benevolent outcomes and release it. Now you can, Theo says, you can continue to request the same thing over and over again, but in reality, you only have to request it once. But some people, it makes them feel better to request it multiple times, and he says that's okay.
So you've always been in a very competitive business environment and, just in life in general. And I guess that sort of brings me to my question here, because it seems that society teaches us from the time where our parents are old enough to sit us down in front of the television set that violence and force is the way to get what you want in the world. The heroes always have guns. The 5'1" supermodels with the 6-inch heels on always kick the big guy in the face, or the executive is stabbing somebody in the back and to get the deal done. Isn't your philosophy, don't you feel out of sync with the world at times? What's your perspective on how out of sync that society has become with their approach to problems?
Well, gosh, I don't know if I look at it between in sync and out of sync. I understand that everyone has their own soul contract, and my soul contract is to teach people about the gentle way and lots of other things, to give people spiritual tools on how to live your life easier, to enjoy life more, and get over those major walls and make them just rubble. And that's my deal. So that's my soul contract. And I really kind of didn't understand that until about 14 years ago. I should say actually about 6 years ago, when I started communicating with Theo, because up until then I was just doing this, and I was writing some articles for the Sedona Journal of Emergence, and lo and behold, I was told that I was supposed to write books, and I was supposed to reintroduce people to the gentle way. And eventually I was to find out that I had been inspired in a life about 200 years before Atlantis sank, to begin requesting benevolent outcomes way back then, and I had 1 million people on the continent of Atlantis that were requesting benevolent outcomes. So this is a very, very old spiritual tool that I was told I was to reintroduce at this time period.
All right, so you introduced this or were teaching people this method 1 million years ago?
No, not
that implies
about 12,000 or so.
Pardon?
About 12,000.
12,000. Okay. Well, that's still a long time, any way you look at it. So, what have you been doing between gigs here for the last 12,000 years? Could you
having a bunch of other lives, a whole bunch of other lives. And keep in mind, I've been told, Theo says, you can't be goody two shoes on every life. You've got to balance all your lives. So you may be a good guy on one and then a thief in another, and that's all part of our soul's learning. And Theo says that I'm one of only 10 people in the world that have had over 1,000 lives. Most people only have 600 to 800 lives on average. And I said, Theo, why such a wide divergence between 600 and 800? And he said, Tom, it all depends on the soul's interests. some of the souls want to get these lives over with quickly. And so these are the drama queens, as I call them, the people that are having great drama in their lives. Every month something new is happening to them, and that's because their soul wants to get over with these earth lives. And then other souls say, let's spread it out, and I'll have 700 or I'll have 800 or whatever the number happens to be. In my case, I'm on my 1,005th, and I said, boy, I must be a slow learner. And Theo said, no, what you do is you come back over and over again to push people along.
So if I understand you right, the 1/6 of the planet that lives in absolute abject poverty and misery and disease chose that life?
Absolutely. That's their soul contract. They have to experience. And the same thing with the people like in Japan that just experienced the tsunami and earthquakes. They lined up for that life 1 million or 2 million years ago, and in order to have a life where they experienced that disaster. You have our souls, as part of the Earth experiment, have to experience every single thing that the Earth has to offer before you finish all your lives.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit confused. One, you tell me that we sign up for the life we have, and then you say we can change it by requesting benevolent outcomes. I'm only halfway in jest here.
Okay.
I mean,
no,
I guess what
fine,
I'm asking is just how much free will do we really have?
It may sound a contradiction, but it's not, because by the time you start requesting benevolent outcomes, a lot of times you're a little bit older soul, and you're more seasoned, as Theo says, and you understand that. But anyone, if they will start requesting benevolent outcomes, will find their lives easier. The challenges will still be there. You'll still have the very same challenges. They just won't be quite as difficult as if you didn't ask for assistance. Okay.
But the number of benevolent outcomes is not limited. So by your reaching in the pot and grabbing some, so to speak, does not diminish the number available for other people. So we're not harming anyone by improving our own lives.
Absolutely not. Everything, all of our lives throughout all these 600, 800 lives that everyone has, they're all happening at the same time, because time is an illusion for us. In the Earth experiment, we're in a loop of time that's about 10 times faster than interstellar time. Okay, our time. Everyone knows that time is speeded up for us. It's like, gosh, everything seems to be moving so fast these days, and that's because we're in this loop of time that's going very, very fast, faster than on other planets.
Okay, now you've really got me going here. So time is just one big loop, and the past and the future and the present are all taking place together, and we reincarnate. So that means that we exist in the past and the future and the present all at the same time?
That's right.
That's too easy an answer. Expand on that, please.
I know. Okay.
Unconfuse me.
We are living all these lives at the same time, and that's why when I first started communicating with Spirit, the first person I communicated with was a shaman back in the 1600s, and that's because he was living his life at the same time I was living my life, and so we can communicate over time, depending on how advanced. In this case, this was a very advanced shaman that was able to not only tune in to me, but keep in mind, for each one of the 600 to 800 lives we're leading, there are 12 parallel lives going on at the same time, 11 physical and 1 non-physical life. So as an example, we're on timeline number 6, in the middle of the pack. And the timelines are grouped in 4s and then subdivided into 2s. Okay? So it gets really complicated. Not only are we having all these lives at the same time, you can multiply that by 12.
Well, sounds like we're having quite a time. Sometimes I bet some of us wish we could visit those other lives we're going on just to check in once in a while. Man, that opens so many questions. If we exist all these different planes and times and so forth, what are we then? Are we not one soul then? Apparently, what the problem I'm having is so much of what you're saying just flies in the face of I don't know, accepted religious beliefs and so forth.
Sure.
The idea
but keep in mind the accepted religious beliefs. The religions of the world were written for a very simple people. These were farming people that were non-literate, unliterate people, whatever that word is, and it had to be kept simple for these people. Plus the fact the churches of that time were all grabbing for power and money, and they were getting all these people to give them money to build churches and to build.
You're ticking off a whole lot of people out there.
Pardon?
I said you're ticking off a lot of people right now.
Oh, I know. And we could, if anybody wants to read even like how the Bible was put together, how many people know about the Council of Nicaea in 327 A.D.?
They took out reincarnation, among other things.
Yeah, well, they got rid of that as part of these were highly edited books that they put together, and they voted on these books. It wasn't this great spiritual thing. These guys were having fights, and in fact, afterwards, it was my understanding that some of the people were killed that didn't believe or that fought for other beliefs. So it's quite interesting if you get into the history of how these religious books were put together. But that may be for another night.
Right. Well, having said that, then I guess the next thing you're going to tell us is that there aren't, damned souls that Hitler went to hell or Saddam Hussein or something like that.
Well,
that they're condemned for throughout the age to burn in hell. Which is accepted.
No, he's going to spend 110 lives to balance that one bad life. And I've had one bad life myself. I was a religious leader back on the continent of Lemuria, and we were at war with another country. And I encouraged the leaders of the country to drop this big bomb or whatever, some kind of war thing, thinking that they didn't have the same thing we did. We did that, and they did, and they retaliated, and it helped sink the continent of Mu. So that took me 82 lives to balance that one. So there you go. We have everything has to balance by the time you leave.
Well, you say everyone has a guardian angel then?
Yes, everyone. There are approximately a little over 1 million guardian angels, which are actually called golden light beings because these whole souls are so advanced. Theo told me that he was the very first guardian angel to apply for the job, and he said the job description was only golden light beings need apply. So,
so they have a sense of humor as well.
Yes, they do. And he said, people have to understand how powerful these beings are. This is not like Clarence, getting his wings and It's a Wonderful Life. These are very powerful beings that are able to take care of us on a minute-by-minute basis in every one of those 600 to 800 lives, all going on at the same time, with all 12 parallel lives going on at the same time. And And Theo says, even we think it's really a furious rate that we are doing this job, and but they do it in love, and that's why they volunteered to do this work.
Mm. Well, I'll make a disclosure here. One of the reasons I became interested in the paranormal and ufology was I had a number of very powerful experiences, paranormal and UFO sightings, starting about the age of 7. And when I say powerful, I mean life-changing, saved my life, bullets whizzing by my ear, the types of things that I knew the outcome could have been, a life ending without some sort of intervention. And in 2 instances, I actually felt and heard a communication. Now, some of my frenemies may think, well, that explains a lot, but these were unmistakably not from my own experience, because they came across in such a fashion that it wasn't part of my, my lexicon. I mean, they were just talking in, I don't know, it sounded like Old Testament. And I, at that time, never went to church, wasn't spiritual or any of that sort of thing. But I guess my point is that these were instances that I was very, very vulnerable and could have either, as I said, died or